Well, the filming is all done. They did a lot of it in Richmond, Virginia, and I went down to see some of the scenes being shot. Daniel Day-Lewis is playing Lincoln, and he's unbelievable. I got to spend a couple days with him in Springfield, Illinois, to take him through Lincoln's sites, and he's already become Lincoln. I mean, he's that kind of an actor who becomes the person he is. Sally Field is Mary. Tony Kushner, the playwright, wrote the script. And it's just, the music's just been scored by John Williams, who's done all of the music for Steven Spielberg, and it's coming out in December. So it's only like 6 months away. It's pretty exciting.
How much influence did you have over the script?
Well, once you give the rights to somebody, you've got to trust in that person because it's their artistic endeavor. They know so much more about how to turn a big fat book into a movie of 2 hours. So the main thing was to be able to trust the script writers. There were several before Tony, and Tony just has done a fantastic job.
Team of Rivals is a big fat book. I forget, about 800 pages?
It's very, very fat.
Rich in detail, marvelous, epic story, all kinds of vivid personalities. How does one boil that down into a movie that runs, whatever, 2.5 hours or so?
What they decided, I think, so brilliantly was to just take a small piece of time so they could tell a story within a story. So it's really the last 4 or 5 months of Lincoln's life. But if you try to tell the whole story, or even 1860 to 1865, it would end up being a biop and telling too much and not getting the drama. So that was an incredible decision, and I think it was the right one.
You've been working for the last several years on your latest book. What's that about, and where does that stand?
So I'm writing about the broken friendship between Theodore Roosevelt and William Howard Taft. They were great friends from the time they were in their 30s, when Taft eventually comes into Teddy's, I'm not supposed to say Teddy, he didn't like that, but I keep doing it because I call him that in my mind, Theodore Roosevelt's cabinet, and then he sponsors him to run after him, and they end up becoming great enemies when they run against each other in 1912, so that friendship is shattered. So that's part of it. But I'm also writing about the great muckraker journalists who were there at the turn of the 20th century. Ida Tarbell, Lincoln Steffens, Ray Baker, William Allen White, they're all at one magazine. And they create the climate of reform through their investigative pieces, and they're a fabulous group of people. And it makes possible the regulation, the antitrust, the actions that first took place at the turn of the 20th century. It's an era not unlike ours. In 1900, they said that 1% of the people owned 99% of the wealth. There was that sense of disparity. There were big mergers, and they were worried about big companies swallowing up little ones. So I feel like sometimes I'm in the present when I'm back in 1900.
Well, as a historian, you have a view of the long sweep of history, and you know that despite all the tough times America has been through, that it gets through those tough times. A lot of people think that right now we're in a real rough patch, and we have what looks like it's going to be a very hard-fought presidential election coming up. Just a few thoughts of yours on the presidential election and how, you know, not who's going to win, who's going to lose, but just your sort of a historian's view of what we're going through now.
Well, you know, as an historian, my major hope for this election, which so far from the primary season doesn't seem to have been realized, is that it will focus on the role of government. There's big division between the two candidates on what the role of government should be. The country needs to make up its mind how active government should be, what should private enterprise's relationship be. We've had that conflict in the 1900s, we had it in the 1930s, we had it in the 60s, and we have it again now. And I just hope we don't get caught in frivolous side issues, and that we really can as a country decide how far does government need to go to help us through this economic mess, what is the role for private enterprise, who is stifling whom or whatever. But if they end up just talking about the past or talking about minor issues, it's going to be a real lost opportunity.
What do you make of the state of journalism right now? Because that's something you've been thinking a lot about, studying. How is it in 2012?
Well, I mean, there's lots of great stuff that goes on in journalism. It's still the first draft of history. There's no question that journalists have now become historians in ways that wasn't necessarily true before. The worrisome thing I think about today is that unlike my guys in the muckraker era, when they had 2 years or 3 years to work on a project, history of Standard Oil or the railroad abuses, everything is so fragmented today, and they're blogging, journalists are blogging, they're on television, they're writing shorter and shorter pieces, our attention span is shorter, that I'm not sure that the impact that they could have at the turn of the 20th century when people would read 10,000-word articles and absorb them and talk about them and pass them around. I don't know if that's happening in the same way today.
It takes you a while, as you say, to finish your books. Have you got any ideas for what you're going to do next?
Now, one thing I'm thinking about is that I do, when I talk about the leadership lessons from Lincoln or FDR or Teddy Roosevelt now. And I think maybe writing a book about leadership lessons from the White House and using the stories of all my favorite guys that I've lived with. You know, it's an odd profession to live with dead presidents, but I've loved every minute of it. And in fact, sometimes I think the only worry is that in the afterlife there's going to be a panel of all the presidents I've ever studied, and everyone will be telling me everything I got wrong. But the first person to yell out will be Lyndon Johnson saying, "How come that damn book on the Kennedys was twice as long as the book you wrote about me?"
And let's close with the Red Sox. They have already given us more gray hairs so far this season. What do you make of them?
I'm now hopeful. I mean, I was just waiting for a little bit of a win streak to be hopeful again, but the team is a good team. I like Bobby Valentine a lot. I mean, I think he's got passion and he's got a kind of charisma, and I know he'll say crazy things as time goes by, but if the pitching can hold up, and our division luckily isn't what it used to be in the past, where we could have been 20 games behind with that terrible beginning we had. So I've got to believe in hope. I feel better now. But I don't know what will happen a month from now. It may be really sad.
That's almost a Bill Clinton line. You still believe in a place called hope.
Still believe in Fenway Park.